Welcome to Unstuckable Marketing with AI. Hopefully, you can see me correctly. So hopefully this works well. All right, here we go. Unstuckable Marketing with AI. So if you're here, you're probably wanting to know how to use AI inside of your business. And that's what I'm going to kind of show you how to do. So first off, let's kind of get really clear on like what marketing is and what marketing isn't it. And so marketing is everything that you do to attract the people in. So if sales is the purchase, marketing is how people find out about you because you can have the most biggest, best, beautiful product in the entire world. But if no one knows about it and if no one can find you, then you have a marketing problem, not necessarily a sales problem. So marketing is everything that brings people in and keeps people there. Your business model requires people to stay around. That is also a marketing objective. For people who are solo entrepreneurs, and not just with ADHD, but just solo entrepreneurs in general, we have to do all of the things. And it's very easy to get really focused on value delivery, whatever the offer or service product that you are providing, that's the value delivery part of it. That is usually where people focus on. It's where we get our certifications and keep up on the news and do research and develop it and try to develop more products, more offers, more services, all of those things. That's value delivery. And it is important because that's obviously that's what you're selling. You're selling the delivery of something for value. But marketing is what attracts, educates, and builds trust with your clients before the sale. And then the sale is actually once someone is like, hey, I'm interested in what you have here. Is this the right one for me? And so they're two different pieces of the same puzzle. When we're talking about the whole process, the sale is a very small piece of it, right? That's when they press the button and the sale actually happens. And so there's a sales language, so like on a sales page, but everything getting them to the sales page, that is all marketing. And that's called a sales funnel. So basically, you're talking about how do you get all the people that exist in the world, how do you find them and bring them down to this one sales page or whatever your mechanism is, and sell in DMs, or there's many different ways to sell. So that's actually what we're talking about. There's tons of people out there, and there's so many different ways you can be doing this. Marketing can be very confusing because it's so broad and it's so big. And one of the things that's important to understand is when it works well, sales are just easy. They happen because it means that the marketing has done all of the important part of it. The marketing made the decision for them to purchase, and then they just purchase. You can rely completely on sales pages, but that's not necessarily what we're going to be talking about here. And it's usually not how people really operate their businesses because you still have to market anyway to get them to the sales page. No matter how you look at it, you can be really light on your marketing or you could do a broad catch marketing and then bring them down. That sales funnel part, decisions on that do have to be made. When we're talking about AI, that whole piece of it is like there's a few different problems here. The first one is that most people are using AI like a glorified search engine. So they open up a chat window, they want something. When you use Google, it was about finding answers to your questions. With AI, there is usually a sort of problem you're trying to solve, but we're still using it like we did for search engines, or like raising your hand in class and asking the teacher a question. So what does that mean, or how does that work? The difference is that there's a few things that are wrong with this. So like one, when you're asking this simple question, it is like raising your hand in class or doing a Google search, and you're kind of building upon the questions. When you're using it for marketing, basically it's like a search engine, the way most people are creating it, and they're polling whatever the most popular responses are. And then the algorithm is putting the words in an order based on the most commonly used phrases. And so that's what's important to understand about these AIs there is that a large language model is a prediction of language. It is not a thinking of what to say. And so, because you're just taking all of everything that exists out there in the world and what the AI is trained on, the output is kind of the average of all of those things that are available. And then the other problem with this, when you're using it like a conversation, on one hand, it's really good for you as a human because you're having a conversation. It's like working with your assistant, working with your boss, working with your subcontractor or consultant that you brought in. It's how we're used to working as humans. And so it feels very natural, and you can do a lot with it that way. I'm not saying you can't, but the big issue with it, and one of the main problems, is that the conversation usually gets longer if you don't understand marketing. So trying to use AI for marketing, you might be coming in with a certain question, and then you keep kind of talking because maybe it gives you a response and it's not quite right, or you don't understand it, and you keep kind of asking other questions. There's two parts to this that are wrong. Number one is that all of these systems have what's called tokens, and they have these token limits. Think of it as words, letters, parts of words. You're allowed so many tokens in that conversation. And once it reaches that, it loses the first part of that conversation, except your initial prompt gets coded in there. That opening question is going to set the tone for the entire conversation. The longer it goes, the more it's going to revert back to trying to answer you that initial question. But if you're coming in not quite sure and you're asking questions and then you get clarity on it and then you have it start working on something else, it's going to lose all of that context, all of that conversation that you had, especially depending on the models. Each of the AI models have different token limits, and they have different strengths and weaknesses. That is, important to know too. This is why most people have to get some pro plans, is because you're using a lot of the tokens that are available because of this conversational nature of AI. Then people started learning. Remember, I said how it would go back to that first initial question, that first initial prompt that gets kind of anchored in. So then people started realizing, hey, if I give it a really good prompt, and they call it prompt engineering, that I get better results. It is a very different thing when you give it a very structured prompt and an open-ended question. Prompt engineering is a skill. It is a technical skill. It is not a marketing skill. It is a way of learning how to understand the way computers work, how the algorithms work, and being able to write in a way where it is able to understand it. So the AI is able to read the instructions and follow the instructions. That's basically all prompts is. Even with that question, it has some directives on what to do with certain kinds of information, and then it just follows that. The more information you can give it in the prompt, especially that initial prompt, the better it's going to be because you can set up the entire conversation in there. This is where I myself have used a lot of other people's prompts and started figuring out what worked, what didn't work. I took some prompt engineering, watched some videos, and I even took a little course on it. And it's beyond the scope of what the average person probably wants to do. It's not that we can't do it, but there needs to be a better way, which is why you're here. I'm not going to teach you prompt engineering. It is a different skill, and it is beyond the purpose of what this conversation is about. And the other issue is that when you're borrowing other people's prompts, most marketers have very specific ways in which they market. And there's frameworks on with marketing, and they work in different ways in different places. And people who are really good at something like to teach it, or they like to work in it. So right now, part of the reason I am doing this Unstuckable Marketing with AI is I think in systems. Like, I understand systems and how systems work, and I like to develop systems because it's natural and easy for me. Now, you may not know this about me, but I have a degree in marketing. I have a degree in marketing and finance. And even with my degree, I struggle so much with marketing. And that's because marketing uses something called emotional language. And if you're really good at using emotional language and understanding emotional language, and you just kind of speak in emotional language, you're going to do great with AI and marketing without probably any help or assistance at all. You can probably just get in there because the AI will then respond with emotional language. And even if you tell it, please just use emotional language, it doesn't understand what kind of emotional language. And so I found this as a coach working with different kinds of people. I have this one client of mine who was part of a group program. She would come in, and sometimes on our day where we're figuring out what our issues are in our business, when she would pop in, she's like, "Oh, why don't you just say this?" And she would pull out something, pop in for me too, because I like to be a part of the group as time permits. Then she would throw out something, and I'd be like, "How did you do that? I have been thinking about this for months." And in just like 2 seconds, she pulled out something that was utterly brilliant. And that's because she just thinks that way. And that is one of those things that I think you can be taught, but as I said, I have a degree in marketing. I have been studying this for years and years and years and years, and I still struggle with it. So I don't know how much more I can be taught. Like, I understand all of the ways that people teach. I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing. I am not dumb. I am very smart. Like, I'm a very smart person. It is not about me not understanding what they're saying. I totally understand what they're saying. I just cannot come up with the emotional language myself. And I'm not alone in that. I do have other clients too that we struggle with. I was realizing I want to figure out a system to use AI because the information is in there, helping AI pull it out. Understanding that even when you're using AI, they're using all these different frameworks and they may not be what's needed for your business or for what you're asking. The biggest issue with prompt engineering, even when you get good prompts from other people, is that prompt builders, formats, templates have placeholders, and then you're supposed to fill in the placeholder. When I was kind of reverse engineering why these different prompts worked well for people in different times and for me in different times, I realized that even in their placeholders, they're assuming that you, the user, knows exactly what to say to put in there. And that is actually at the heart of the problem. It is about understanding the context that the AI actually needs. Those placeholder parts are kind of the most important part. You can have a kind of sloppy prompt with really good context, and the prompt will really work. An AI doesn't have a brain, it doesn't know. It doesn't think through things. It has a set of instructions and then it follows those instructions. It's just instructions with instructions. A lot of if this, then that. It's basically that, or if then else is really the format. As someone who actually does programming, I can tell you that there's really only three major rules everything is built upon. And then it's just a matter of how that language works within it. So how does the AI know then what to write? Yes, it's the prompt. Better prompts, better output, hands down. But what makes a prompt work for one person and not work for the other one? It's the context in which they use the prompt with. And so context is, let's see, I think I have an example here, right? Where's my example? Okay. I thought I had an example. All right. I don't have the example. I'm going to give you an example right now. You can have a really amazing prompt for a target audience or a buyer persona profile, right? Ideal client profile. There's all these different words to remember, different frameworks. Sometimes they have demographics in there. Sometimes they have, fears. Sometimes they have needs. Sometimes they have wants, desires. Like there's all these different words and different ways in which people organize these different profiles to represent the person their product works for. So when you give a prompt, same exact prompt, and you say, I work with solo entrepreneurs with ADHD, what it then does, I'm using me as an example because I've done this many times and I can tell you hands down what it does. It goes entrepreneur, and it doesn't necessarily understand the implications of entrepreneur because there's so much more content on entrepreneur and then entrepreneur, business, and there's so much more context on business. So it takes general business information and suggestions, and it will take the business information and suggestions, which are usually for large corporations with teams of people, like sales divisions and marketing divisions. And then it'll take the general information of ADHD, productivity, business. Is going to start saying smart goals. It has these things that have been used over and over again. And then it's going to create a profile based off of all of that general information. That has nothing to do with my business. I'm a solo entrepreneur. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I have a bunch of things that I like to do. I'm also in the psychedelic space. And so I'm very ADHD. I've got my interests and I'm building a couple businesses simultaneously. I am doing all of the pieces myself. I don't have a team. I'm not outsourcing right now. I don't have the space and ability to have an entire branding team to be able to come in and manage everything. I do have some assistants here and there, some people, but they're on limited scheduling. So it's mostly just me holding down the fort. That is the majority of solo entrepreneurs that I know, the vast majority of everything. Occasionally they'll get a VA, or in my case, I have a 6-year-old son. He helps me on some of the stuff. But for the most part, that is all that's happening, right? And the issue then is that I now have this ideal client profile that sounds right. And if I don't understand marketing, if I don't really understand the whole pieces of it, I'm going to read it and I'll be like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Right. And it doesn't actually do much of anything. However, if I give it a whole bunch of context and say, all right, instead of saying a solo entrepreneur, I say a I give it much more context about who that entrepreneur is, what their life is like, what they can do. How does ADHD show up in their life? What does that actually mean? Then I can get a completely different ideal client profile. The context in which you give the AI, it will give you completely different things with the same exact prompt. It is all about the context in which you feed the AI. With full context, you give AI your business, your clients, your offer, the transformation, and you ask it to build a client profile. It will give it. It will be perfect. And maybe not perfect. You have to always review everything with AI, but it will be really good. And if you don't have a background in marketing, if you haven't taken all the courses, if you don't understand and you don't think in that emotional language way that marketers do, what it gives you is going to be really good. If you don't have that context, you're going to be like, this doesn't sound right. No, this isn't what I want. And if you're not, you'll know it's not quite right, but you won't know how to explain it. You won't understand how to explain why it's not right. And then you try and then you kind of give up. Maybe that's just me. That was my frustration. I'd be trying and trying and I could not figure it out. Once I kind of realized it is all about the context, once I understood how the AI work, I was like, oh, I am not giving it the context it needs. Now, most of the language models, especially ChatGPT and Claude, started realizing they're going to start collecting details about the person as they go in their conversations, and they hold a little bit of that context. But if you've ever seen behind the scenes what that context file looks like, it's like little sentences, little snippets of information that it tries to hold on to. Now, you can go in and edit it for ChatGPT. There might be a way with Claude, I don't remember, and Gemini's still playing around with when and where to use it, so it's still a little bit iffy. But what I did find that regardless, if you have a context document, like all of the information in documents, and you give it to it, and then you give it its prompt, it completely changes the game. And so that's what we're going to be doing in these next 4 weeks. So what we're building and why it works, right? We're basically creating an AI context stack specifically geared for marketing. Now, some of these pieces that we're going to be building will be able to work in many different areas of your business. And there's a reason why we do them in the order that we do. Once you have these, you can create content super quick that's completely written for you in your business and your offers and the people that you want to buy your products, right? Or your offers and your services. The beautiful thing about this is like you build the context documents once and you just keep using them. Now, you will want to update your knowledge base. So you're basically creating a knowledge base for the AI. You'll want to update your knowledge base as you evolve, as things change, but you have them in one place and you update it in the one spot. I will show you how to set it up with the different AIs on how to pull from that one specific place. So you're only having to update and keep track of one singular document. There's ways to do it with the different systems. I will go through how to do things with ChatGPT. I will go through how to do things with Claude, and I'll go to how to do things with Gemini. I know that there's Grok and DeepSeek and some of the other ones, but I'm just sticking with those three. My preference for marketing in general is going to be Claude. The different AIs are kind of trained to work a little bit differently. And Claude, from the very beginning, was trained to be linguistic in nature. It was always about having very human speech. Now, it can get really long, but in general, it's going to be much more fuller in the quality in which it provides. Gemini is amazing for planning. Gemini is a planning system. They literally have a planning model for planning. It's always been really good with pedagogy, however you say that word, creating course structure. It's really good at taking a whole bunch of mishmash of information and feeding it in and having it organize it. One of the things, chat is really bad about this, and then Claude is also kind of sometimes it has issues with this. If you are using the AI and you have ADHD, which I'm assuming you do because you're here, but even if you don't have ADHD, if you use the AI where you're speaking, which I highly recommend getting some kind of dictation, whether you do it from your phone and then having it, sending it in an email, or like using one of the WhatsApp or the Signal that's online and doing it from your phone, or just talking directly into the AI. Some of the AIs, they have the option where it will translate your speech to text. You'll give much more context, and context is always what the AI needs. It cannot read your brain. It's not a human. It doesn't think. It organizes instructions and organizes data and language in a way that makes sense as an output. When you speak, most of the time we will talk about something, maybe talk about something else. Then we remember something about the first thing we were talking about, so we'll mention it. And then you talk about the next thing again, and then maybe you talk about something else. Oftentimes, it will structure the output exactly like you said. Remember, the AI is just looking for instructions. You want to have the context and the instructions separate. And the AI will understand that. I have set everything up that way. There's a few ways we do this. We create 8 core documents throughout this program. If you are joining me from Unstuckable, then you already have probably done your business clarity blueprint by this point. If you just signed up with this, you got an option. One of the bonuses is the business clarity blueprint. This is what you need to do first. I don't know you, and I don't know where you are in your business. The AI doesn't know you. You may think it does by the way it responds to you. It just knows what you have been telling it. And if you have not told it all of the things, it doesn't know all of the things about you. And so the business clarity blueprint came about mostly for me first and then for my clients, because once I saw how well it worked for me, I wanted to share it with my clients. Then once I saw how well it worked for my private clients, I shared it with everybody. What the business clarity blueprint does is it helps you get clear in your business. I work mostly with people with ADHD. We have lots of ideas, trying to do 15 things at the same time. That is difficult to build a business that way. It doesn't mean you can't. You can build a really profitable business in 1 year. There's a system for it. It's a repeatable process. It's everywhere. You focus on one offer, one sales system that includes your marketing, from marketing down to the sales, one target audience, and you give yourself 1 year. And there's some variations in that, but that's the crux of it. Sometimes there's a fifth thing in there, and that fifth thing changes, but it's always the one offer, one target audience, one sales system. And if you can build it in a year. The problem is that if it takes a year to build a business and you're trying to build 8 different products, that's 8 years before everything is working. And so the business clarity blueprint helps you narrow down and be like, yeah, what do I really want to focus on? And so it starts with your big vision, not just in your business, but like in your whole existence. And it helps you get clarity on what you're building, what your big vision is. It shows you where your gaps are, and it helps you focus on ideally one. For ADHD, it's probably not going to be one, but I really wouldn't go past 4, but narrow down 3 funnels. What's the main offer I am trying to focus on, build, and what is the funnel to get there? And just getting really clear on what that sales funnel is. You could have one offer with 4 funnels. or you could have 4 offers with one funnel each. But a funnel is one way in which you get people into that offer. And so that's what the business clarity blueprint does. This is hands down the longest step. So it's a standalone product. You can theoretically do it in a day, but you're going to need some time. You have to read through it. Like if you answer well, it's going to be correct, but you need to get it down to the point where when you read it, there isn't anything that's ambiguous. Because if there's anything that's ambiguous, when you feed that document in to the next steps, it might pick up that one thing that really isn't accurate and runs with it. So it's really important that you read through it and get your business clarity blueprint accurate and update it. If you make changes in ideas, you want to go back and update it. Once you have that business clarity blueprint, then you create the AI business context document. That is in the business clarity blueprint. It's one of the bonuses. It's also in the AI prompt library, which I'll go over with you. Then once you have that business context document, you use this every single time you use AI when you're working in your business. If you're doing anything in your business, you use this business context document. The funnel profile is when you're working in that funnel. So, like right now, we're talking about marketing. Remember, I said there could be 4 different ways in which people find you. Say you're posting on LinkedIn, say you've got an Instagram, say you go out in the world and you're doing events, right? Those are 3 different funnels in which people find you. They have different ways in which they convert into a sale. And so you will need 3 funnel profiles for each of those. And that's what the funnel profiles do, is that they help narrow down how people get into your offer. So that way the AI, when you're working in that funnel and you give it to it, it's like, oh, I understand how people are finding them. So that's part of the marketing process. And then we have an offer overview. This is a clarity step. You will get super clear on who your offer is, who it serves. From that offer overview, you can create a target audience document. You can create a brand persona. From the funnel profile, you can create a target audience document. But I do find the offer overview and a brand persona, they work a little bit different. So the target audience document is more about when you're working at the top of the funnel, and the offer overview and brand persona are very good for when you're writing or creating sales pages or email marketing, where it's a very specific kind of person that you're writing to. And then we will also do a brand voice guide, show the AI how to actually write, like how we do. We all have different styles of writing. We have different energy and how we show up in the world and different things that we talk about, even within our niches and our businesses, different things that we find important. I'm talking about AI, right? There are thousands of other people talking about AI, but I focus on ADHD and nervous system regulation. So that's a very specific brand voice that I have that is different from other people. So getting your brand voice guide very clear is going to be very important for that. And then this is my little the story library is when I need to create content really quickly, mostly for email outreach, the top of the funnel part where you're like social media, your email marketing, things where you just need to connect with people very quickly. The story library is just like a game changer in being able to create content very quickly that actually connects with people and who you are. So, but it doesn't get used alone. So those are going to be the main documents that we create. Now I'm going to actually share the community. Okay, so this is the community, successdoula.community. By the way, I have everything available usually from my main page and then in the community, whichever way you land, right? So if you go to my courses, that will give you a list of all the courses. So you will see the Unstuckable Marketing with AI. I'm going to switch the image to that new like Dr. Seuss inspired image because I like that one better. And so this is actually where you will go to find all of the course. That is a draft. But this is the real lesson right here. So you've probably already seen it because you probably joined the Zoom link either from here or from the email. And then you have all of the content here. So you will see the lessons here. This video, if you're watching it on the replay, that's where you're getting it from, is right here. But I also want to share some of the other things that we will be talking about. So since you joined, if you notice, I clicked Unstuckable AI assistance. The business clarity blueprint is where you find it. This is where you can find everything right here. There's a video, there's the instructions right here. The videos are on getting started. Just read the instructions. But through this course, we're going to be using this AI prompt library, continuously building out this prompt library. So, like, if you are the AI business context document, so I think it actually says to go over here to do it. You'll see instructions right here. Copy this prompt, and it gives you instructions on what to do. And then you copy the prompt and you put it into your AI of choice. So whether you're using chat, Claude, Gemini, it doesn't matter. You copy the prompt and then you put it into your system that you prefer. Once you have your documents, how to set them up and start organizing them. And that's just going to be a bonus video that I have for you guys that you can watch on your own. This all will work even if you don't watch the other videos and set them up that way. So that's where you kind of find everything, the community, the AI prompt library, and the AI assistance. Before next week, do your business clarity blueprint, your AI business context document, and your funnel profiles. You will need those before we start the rest of the marketing content. This is the foundation for being able to create your marketing. Once you have these, the business clarity blueprint takes some time, but once you have it, it really makes everything go so much quicker. If you just hop in, even in the process, you get so clear on your business that your marketing starts becoming obvious as well. Because that's a big part of why people struggle is that they're not quite sure what it is they're offering or how they help people, what the transformation is. All of those pieces are usually very elusive to people. If you're someone who's like a therapist, that's usually pretty explanatory. People know what therapy is, but not everyone knows what therapy is. It's a little bit easier when people know what your offer your services. Marketing is easier when people know what it is. Once people don't know what it is, especially if you're a coach, people may or may not know what coaching is. They may not understand what your coaching is. And that's when marketing is really important because they don't even know what it is that they're looking for to help them. Like mascara. Mascara marketing is very different than coach marketing. But even with that, you have to know what your offer is. My favorite mascara is the tubing kind, the kind that puts the tubes around your eyelashes. So I am looking for tubing mascara because the first time I heard about it, the marketing said, stop getting raccoon eyes. I'm like, oh my God, I used to always get really bad raccoon eyes, even with waterproof most of the time. The tubing solved that. So now I know that, but if they hadn't had their marketing explaining stop getting raccoon eyes, I don't know that I ever would have discovered tubing mascara because I wouldn't have known that's what I needed. That was the problem that I was having. So marketing plays a really important role in helping people learn why you are the one to help them. All right. I'm going to stop it here and then I'll see what is going on with everybody. And then I will record those other videos for the Claude, the Gemini, and the Zoom, the Claude, the Gemini, and the ChatGPT. All right. Bye. See you next week.